Good day, everyone, colleague participants. As you have discussed the last 2 days, internet security is a global concern. Critical infrastructure sectors, government, companies, business, academia, and private citizens are increasingly dependent upon digital infrastructures provided by several actors. In this section, we would like to reflect on how the computer security incident response teams, also called the fire brigade of the internet, can promote routing security and the adoption of manners. CSIRT provide a range of proactive and reactive services and implement standard and framework for effectively delivering their mission. They do so through shared intelligence, shared technical expertise, norms, and good practice in their communities, and support cybersecurity coordination among several stakeholders. To discuss that, several panelists will share their experience, lessons learned, good practice, and strategy with us. The panelists are Francis Sitati from the National Kenya Computer Incident Response Team. Thank you, Francis. Peter Gitau, Technical Manager, TESPOC, and also a sector CSIRT in Kenya. Interesting case. Thank you, Peter. Alain, Aina, CEO of Digital Intelligence Africa, an industry veteran who has built network across several verticals. I think I've known Alain since '96, and he was already building network at that time. And Barry Greene, who is another industry veteran, whose expertise span across several abuse communities, the forum incident response teams, etc. So let me start right away by Francis. Francis, I understand that you work for the Kenyan National CSIRT and that there is a national framework. In that framework, the telecom sector is a critical sector. Internet connectivity is a critical services, and system information infrastructures include internet exchange points, ISPs, mobile operators, and digital infrastructure. In some other country, it can be something else, for example, IT sector or another DEMI. So I'm curious about the role of routing security into national resiliency plan. For example, what do you do when there is a routing jack or when you receive an information about a vulnerability affecting BGP? Who do you call? How do you work with your ISPs, mobile operators, and telco? How do you coordinate with various stakeholders identified related to routing incident? Who are those stakeholders? Are these stakeholders included in your threat intelligence plan, audit requirement, information sharing practice, awareness raising program? Do you ask them, for example, to be manners compliant? What are the challenges and opportunity, Francis? Back to you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Robert. If you can hear me, kindly confirm.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Yes, so just to reintroduce myself, my name is Francis Itatif, as you rightly put it, from the National Kenya Computer Incident Response Team based out in Nairobi. And thank you very much for extending this invitation to us to take part in this webinar. And just in the interest of time, let me just jump right into the discussions. So in terms of how the National CERT responds to routing incidents, indeed, the National CERT plays a crucial role in responding and coordination to routing incidents, and generally just ensuring the stability and security of the network infrastructure within the country. So there are various ways in which the CSIRT assists in response to right-wing incidents. The first one has to do with incident risk detection and analysis, whereby we have teams that continuously monitor network traffic, and we analyze routing data, basically just to try to establish whether there are any discrepancies or anomalies that are affecting the routing infrastructure. So we have teams that look out for, route leaks, misconfigurations, and basically suspicious routing behaviors or tendencies. Also, at the CSIRT, we coordinate, cyber incidents. We act as a central point of contact for receiving of these incidents, and we coordinate with various stakeholders, including the internet service providers, mobile network operators, these are the players who the bulk of the traffic passes through their infrastructure. So we do have communication channels whereby we exchange information and we share updates, etc. Also, in terms of incident response and mitigation, whereby we work to contain and mitigate various incidents efficiently and efficiently, basically. We conduct impact analysis and possible severity of the incidents. We also assess the risk of those incidents to the network infrastructure and determine the appropriate responses affecting these stakeholders. Also, we do have systems that provide network early warning to our various constituents, and we work with other national CERTs, both regionally and beyond, whereby we issue technical advisories, which is basically just guidance to these network operators and ISPs in how they can respond to possible routing incidents. So in terms of collaboration and also sharing of information, we work with other internet governance bodies like ICANN, that of course formulates the global best practices and experiences that we can deploy to our local situation locally. So in terms of the National Infrastructure Protection Plan, if you can call it that, we as a government have taken various steps to identify the critical information infrastructures within the country, and we recognize the importance of protecting these CIIs, of course, due to the significance in terms of the national security. We are living in an era whereby we are witnessing cyber warfare. And of course, CIIs have a direct impact on the stability of the economy and the public safety generally. So some of the initiatives that we have undertaken at the National CERT include, we took part in the development of a national cybersecurity strategy that basically gives an outline of how best to secure our cyberspace, and it also allocates the different roles and responsibilities that the different agencies will play in terms of building synergies to ensure that our CIIs are protected. Also, in terms of the legal and policy framework, we have various laws and policies that govern matters to cybersecurity and protection of this critical information infrastructure. We have the Kenya Information and Communications Act, specifically that provides for the development of frameworks for facilitating the investigation and prosecution of cybercrimes. also efficient management of critical internet resources. Also, we have an act of parliament known as the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act that also, governs matters to do with the critical infrastructure. And recently, in the not too distant past, we actually gazetted various infrastructures as being critical to the economy of the country. From a perspective of the national CSIRT, we collaborate with various agencies through the national CSIRT CC Cybersecurity Committee that brings together players within the public sector and the private sector to build synergies, to build those trust networks, and to promote information sharing. So we collaborate with various sectors, like the energy sector, the academia. We also have the telecommunication sector towards, towards achieving the resilience and also response, coming up with response plans to these ever-evolving cyber threats. Also, I can talk about public-private partnerships. That's one of the initiatives that we're keen to develop. Specifically, we have the administrator of the .ke CCTLD, which is a role that is played by the Kenya Network Information Center, or KENIC. Basically, this is the importance of the PPP is that we're able to ensure that there's buy-in both from the public sector and the private sector that brings together expertise and efficient implementation of various security measures. Also, I talked about the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act that establishes a committee known as the National Computer and Cybercrimes Committee, and the NC4. So the NC4 brings together various players, specifically in the public sector, that have a role to play in cybercrime management in the country. So we have different agencies within the law enforcement, as well as in the ICT sector. So the NC4 is has one of the responsibilities is to conduct risk assessment and classification of some of these CIIs to evaluate perhaps the threats and vulnerabilities that they're in, and also analyzing the impact of possible disruptions and identifying also the most critical assets that are required to protect. Moving on, whether managing risk that is inherent to internet routing is part of our technology sector specific plan. I'd like to report that indeed managing risk inherent to internet routing is an integral aspect of securing CIIs and is typically addressed in the sector-specific framework that I mentioned earlier, and also the National Cybersecurity Strategy. So the aspect of risk assessment I talked about, briefly mentioned, and its aim is to basically identify and understand the potential risks and vulnerabilities that there exist. And this includes, of course, looking at the impact of disruptions, unauthorized access, route hijacking, etc. Also, vulnerability management, implementing measures to address, the well-known vulnerabilities in routing devices, the vulnerabilities in software, and the various protocols. Yeah, so some of the what we advise some of our stakeholders includes regularly updating and patching routing equipment, staying informed about, we inform them about potential vulnerabilities, new and emerging vulnerabilities, and also best practices for secure configurations. Also, with regard to secure routing protocols, deploying secure routing protocols such as the Border Gateway Protocol security, BGP security, which of course adds cryptographic protection, is significant in preventing route hijacking. In terms of the current and future risk management considerations that I will talk about from a CSIRT point of view, I think we're looking at, just a moment. We're looking at some of the cyber threat landscape, which is emerging. It keeps changing very quickly. So there's need to keep ourselves abreast, updated on various new and emerging cyber threats. We're looking at the threat that is, and indeed it's a global threat that is currently being posed by ransomware. Its ability to disrupt entire sectors of the economy. So it really is a threat to the national security for this reason. Also issues of, ransomware now is being offered as a service. Those are some of the concerns from the national CSIRT point of view. Social engineering also remains as a big problem in this part of the world, especially with regard to the mobile money transfer services that are very popular in the country. It really remains a big threat, and there's a lot more we need to do in that respect. Also, there's been an increase in phishing attacks, obviously because of the easy way in which you can propagate phishing. A simple email gives you access to, potentially give you access to somebody's network. In terms of the legal and regulatory framework, we're looking to ensure compliance with various laws and regulations. We have now in place a Data Protection Act, 2019, I believe, because we believe that at least this will help to mitigate various legal and reputational risks, and also promoting, that culture of security. So in terms of capacity building and awareness, this is one of the major areas in which the national CSIRT is involved in, just to build that cyber hygiene amongst different, different populations, different ages, right from the school going, kindergarten, maybe preschool. We have a program known as a Child Online Protection Program that aims to, equip the younger generation with the right skills in terms of how they can protect themselves while using the internet. It also covers other disadvantaged groups like the people living with disabilities, and also the elderly, because the elderly remain a vulnerable group. So there is need for them to be, for their capacity to be built and for awareness to be created amongst that demographic. There are also various other initiatives that we're engaged in. We have an event known as the October Cybersecurity Awareness Month activities that currently we're working hand in hand with the academia, whereby we're looking to run a series of boot camps and hackathons targeting students in the universities and other tertiary institutions. We also run an event known as the Annual National Public Key Infrastructure Forum that focuses mainly on the digital certification services. There's a mobile application that we've provided on the App Store and Play Store that can be used to report incidents, including for children. And I could also mention about the Cyber Soldiers game that is, that is targeted at the younger generation, in as much as, it provides an avenue for the children to have to enjoy while playing the game, but it's also really educative. Something I could talk about is in terms of this is threat intelligence sharing. So we have established mechanisms through the NKCC, the National CSIRT Cybersecurity Committee, for sharing threat intelligence. As this helps to identify and mitigate emerging risks more effectively, and also it encourages organizations also to share anonymized threat data. We are seeing, especially in the financial sector, that players are not willing to come forward to report for obvious reasons. You know, there's reputational risk. But through these frameworks, we are seeing that more and more players in this space are coming out to actually report. And by doing so, they actually assist somebody else to avoid getting hit by the same kind of threat. So how we coordinate the various stakeholders identified regarding the routing incidents. We do this through various means. First of all, the internet service providers play a critical role for obvious reasons, because they're the carriers of the traffic, and they operate and maintain the network infrastructure. The ISPs are a major partner for us, as they are responsible for routing configurations and monitoring, and we work hand in hand in helping them take corrective actions to identify incidents within their networks. Also, we work with the mobile network operators, and since they also have a stake in the routing incidents, of course, because they also manage and operate the network infrastructure and the services. I talked about also the other national CERTs that we work with, both within the region and beyond. At a government-to-government level, we work closely to share threat information and to provide each other with technical assistance. Also, I think I'll talk about the internet exchange points, because these are crucial for the network exchange of traffic, since they also play a role in facilitating the coordination and communication amongst the ISPs, who are our licensees, and the network operators. So they have a role to play in the routing incidents by helping to disseminate information and also helping to address those incidents quite promptly. Yeah. Am I out of time?
Yes, one more minute and then.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Robert. So in terms of the stakeholders involved in threat intelligence and the audit requirements and information sharing practices, as well as awareness raising programs, I think I talked about the various other national CERTs, ISPs, network operators, and also industry associations. We now have the Kenya Cybersecurity and Forensics Association. That is an association that brings together players within the cybersecurity and also the digital forensic space. And what we do is that we contribute to the collection, analysis, and dissemination of threat information, and also including information of the indicators of compromise, as well as various other vulnerability and attack patterns. Yeah, so I think in the interest of time, allow me to stop there. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Francis. You highlight a couple of things, and I put Peter on the spot. But Peter, let me quick ask a few questions to Alain before we get back to you. Alain, you have built numerous network across several stakeholders for more than 2 decades. And you have seen many issues leading to routing incidents and also responded to many incidents. So what do you see as issue in securing internet routing? I mean, in terms of challenges and opportunities. Are you aware of existing good practice? How can we improve the situation, and what stakeholders can we bring into the conversation? Back to you, Alain.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Robert, and thank us for inviting me to share my perspective regarding the routing securities and the miners. And yes, you call me a veteran, and okay, I have to accept it. And then we have been in the industry for several years, and I've had a chance to deploy and manage several network and infrastructure across Africa. So the last one I completed was the Wakren network, West and Central Africa Research and Education Network. So, and also as Afrinic staff, because I've passed there too. I passed there as well as Afrinic staff. I had the opportunity to be part of the initial discussion, which led to the RPKI inside the RIR staff and community. And I had a chance, I also privileged to lead the deployment of RPKI at Afrinic. So, but back to the topics and the role of the CSIRT in the routing security, and to address your question. So I'll make few comment on the topics first, then I will go and try to share my views on the point you mentioned. Routing security and best practices are old issues. Okay. I do remember, and I'm sure you and probably Barry Greene and few people there online may remember that in Cape Town in 2000, at the first AFNOG meeting, I gave a presentation on denied of service attack, what are they, and how to defend against them in 2000. And a decade later, we started pushing for government involvement in routing security and DDoS and all these things, because we realized that the campaign in the technical community alone, plus the competitions and the market force, will not be enough. Will not be enough. So, and then during Afrinic 13 and Afrinic 14, at the African Government Working Group and Law Enforcement meeting, I also had a chance to give a presentation that time, which was BCP 38, government has a role to play. So just to say that this thing has been on the table for years, and has been evolving. So, but now I can see some progress. I see some progress since then, but also some challenges. According to the Miners Observatory, when I checked a few days ago, I think challenges are still around RPKI adoptions, and the same anti-spoofing. They say anti-spoofing will be advocating around about about the BCP 38. So now to answer the questions, I will go one by one. Yes, some of the threat to the routing, internet routing and related issue I've encountered during all these years of experience. Just a few of them. So I will just mention a few few of them, but not the one, the typical one. So, maybe the first one I do remember here is that at the beginning when we were building network, first some of the issue we face and probably still around today is the lack of backhaul of the black hole filtering, which lead to routing loops and DDoS, for example. And some people they were just very happy to get the /19/18, but they just use a /24 from it, and then they use the default route to upstream, and because they don't put that dev null zero route to black hole the whole /19, then the traffic for the unused space comes in and go back, and then this ping pong and sometimes the length, the small pipe at that time get saturated, and so it was a big issue. So, and then if you remember, we have to train people and advocate that people should do this black hole filtering. So that. And the other issues I can point out here is that when you are managing a network, sometimes you have customers, and sometimes then you have to find a trade-off between a customer's need and your best practices. And I do remember that, especially when managing the RAN network, the regional RAN network, sometimes we have to forced to switch the URFP, the URFP control we have to switch from strict mode to loose mode, okay? Because some people say, oh, well, we have to go through the ISPs and come back through the RAN net, come through the RAN network, etc. But when we go through your network and we come through the ISP, it works. But when we want to go through the ISP and come back through the RAN, it doesn't work. So we have to move from strict to loose, and sometimes you have to totally disable the reverse path check, because that's what they want. And it's very painful because we know that these customers have no filtering, and we at that time we reported many issues from them originating packets with bogon IPs, and were involved in some botnet and malicious activities. And the last one I'll point here, but which is also related to the routing and all this filtering, is the challenges we had at some time at AfriCERT to debogonize the new IP block. Yeah, when Aina used to allocate a /18, when then the AfriCERT get the /18, okay, we need to make sure then we have to advertise this, okay, and look at the routing table and run a campaign to tell people, please remove this /8 from your bogon list and this, etc. But sometimes people don't follow. And then when AfriCERT start allocating, so this point to people not maintaining the filters. And you can imagine this has a big impact, okay? And even those, we also see that even though when the bogon list has been updated and we have run the campaign, sometimes still you still see people's carrying old filters and not accepting packet from some of these IP address. So these are the routing related incident I want to mention and point to. But I think all these things are still happening. But maybe they are not on this day's top list, but they still happening. They still happen today. So the challenge and opportunity for securing the internet routing. So you know that changing the core has always been tricky and difficult. And what we are trying to do here is to affect the core. internet, the motto has been, we keep the core simple and we innovate at the edge. But now, since a few years, we decided to improve the core, and then this comes with its own challenges. And so the main challenges, I think, remain convincing people to about the benefit of this improvement, implementation and cost benefit of this most of this measure we have in place. Okay, and this has been the main reason why we were calling the government, we were calling all the other stakeholders to come here. So I think these challenges remain valid. Okay, they remain valid, and also the fact that despite all the abuse and all these weird things going on internet routing, so people still have impression, but it works. So it looks like this is what I call the internet magic, because based on even when you look at all this abuse, all these weird things going on, but we still move packet. And internet still works. So it makes people say that you are just trying to fix something which is not broken, Okay, so then is but there are some opportunities there as well, and I'll mention a few of them. So these days now is becoming cybersecurity is becoming topics. Is becoming priorities, and the government, law enforcement, cybersecurity agency are more receptive to this technical detail. So, you know, in the early days, this agency, they don't see the IP network routing, even DNS security or even mail security, but now they are now getting very specific on what you should do. And some of them are even encouraging and putting in a national framework that routing security should be in place. Okay, especially when they set the objective goals for securing communications and e-services. So we've seen that now routing securities is now being mentioned in the national framework, being now imposed to the critical infrastructure, which include the providers, etc. The other opportunities I see here is that the exhaustion of IPv4. The exhaustion of IPv4 and all these things going on and happening in the routing table. Now people care more and more about the IP ownership and right to use and routing status. So people really care, and then they're accepting. They're asking, what can I do? What can I do to make sure that nobody hijack this? What can I do to make sure? Then I see opportunities over there. Any good practices to how we can improve the situations? I would just say here that not to repeat the other colleagues, but to say that capacity building, I see capacity building again here too. Okay, we need to go back to hands-on and teach routing again, because if you look at the routing and routing securities tracks, things are involved, and we should not take it for granted. We should not take it for granted, because the fear to break the routing, or the fear to tackle some unknown or uncertainties are a big stopper for people trying to implement some of these things we are asking them to do here. So building confidence through building capacities is also very important. Then lastly, what are the stakeholders? What stakeholders should be involved? Yeah. The National Security Agency, okay, I'm going to focus more on these people. Okay, I see here we are here to talk about CSIRT and CSIRT, but I think the National Cybersecurity Agencies, the CSIRT and CSIRT, the telco regulators, ICT regulators and the regional telecommunication union, Commonwealth, and R2, or all these people need to be involved. But everybody knows that, for example, if ITU make a decision, make a decision that the member states should implement something, it gets some momentum. So I think this is things I want to say here. And thank you, Jean-Robert, and I hope I answer all your points, but I'm still here if you have any other concern or things. So thank you, Jean-Robert.
Wow, very impressive. Thank you very much, Alain. I think you touched a couple of points, and also which call the other speakers into action. So I'm now going to add some specific questions. And also something that you mentioned also is the need for global communication, and also bringing our area and different stakeholders like bodies like UN, ITU, etc. In the discussion. Thank you so much. So Peter, this takes me back to you. So you work for the Kenyan Internet Exchange Points. It's, as definition, it is called the facility that keeps Kenya internet traffic in Kenya. But KSP is part of the telecom sector, critical sector in Kenya. And you also have a sectorial CSIRT teams. So Francis talked about the national framework, the different sectors, etc., the integration, and also mentioned that there is a sector-specific plan. What I would like to know is how do you work with the national CSIRT from your sector plan to the national plan? How do you coordinate back to your membership? How do you coordinate like issue related to routing incident, but also how do you implement good practice within your membership community? For example, does one of your members have a CSIRT teams? How is the relationship in terms of, again, manus adoption, coordination of routing incident? How is that relationship when your member have a CSIRT team and when a member doesn't have a CSIRT team? Do you ask them, for example, to be manus compliant? Do you provide advisory services? What do you do in terms of infrastructure resiliency strategy? And also, alluding a little bit on what Alain said, what do you do, for example, when one of your members is not responsive? So back to you, Peter. We would like to hear from your perspective.
Thank you, Jean-Robert. I work for Kenya Internet Exchange Point, which is the local ISP which was founded in 1999. I was there initially when it was set up working for a small internet provider at the time. And it was set up under the auspices of the Technology Service Providers of Kenya. That is an industry association that then, in this particular discussion, comprises a sector CERT that would then sit on the national CERT for the purposes of coordination and working together. The Technology Service Providers Association of Kenya also does advocacy as well, which assists in critical infrastructure management with regards to it is a discussion among themselves, that is the owners of the infrastructure, as well as other infrastructure operators, in this case, roads and water infrastructure, which would have an impact on our own members' critical infrastructure, that is the telecommunications infrastructure. By sitting on the national CERT, we represent our membership from the sector CERT perspective, and that allows us to ensure that best practices are followed by members, mitigating the incidences that might occur, education, and supporting technical teams. This is done by a team which comprises several people within the test box secretariat who are dedicated to this purpose. The way we work with the national CERT is, of course, by regular meetings where we do attend their meetings that are called, and we do have regular communication with them so that information is shared as well as incidents as the case may be. This, of course, is further propagated to our members as well. Our members do have their own CSIRT teams. This is in addition to them being sector CERTs in themselves. To give several examples, we do have utilities that are members of CareXP, and we do have critical infrastructure who are also members of CareXP. Those comprise sector CERTs that sit at the national CERT level. When dealing with our members, we ourselves as the Kenya Internet Exchange Point do filter and are manners compliant. We do this as by default, and we automate our processes in that regard. By doing this, we are an example to our members when we turn around and ask that they also perform filtering as a best practice, in addition to the Kenya Internet Exchange Point connectivity that they have with us. We do encourage them to also ensure that they do filtering to their upstream providers and their bilateral providers or partners, as the case may be. This hopefully will mean that they would also be manners compliant and would also qualify for certification in that regard. We do also provide training to our members in a whole lot of other areas, but also specifically on issues to do with routing security. With regards to manners and BGP vulnerabilities, as I mentioned, we are open to discussing our manners participation expectations with members regarding their peering security. It is a conversation that we are very much willing to have with them, and we do have with them. On issues to do with the members' responsibility, that is an area that is an opportunity to exercise some patience and diplomacy while educating them. This is because they are a member, not just a customer, and we have to hold their hands and work with them on whatever the issues may be. Of course, our members are aware that non-compliance with technical requirements as regards to connectivity with the Kenya Internet Exchange Point may lead to suspension of services, but that is not something we have had to do in any case. As I mentioned earlier, the fact that we do filtering by default means that the opportunity for a routing incidents across the exchange point is mitigated. And by automating the entire process, we hopefully operate an exchange point that will not be subject to routing security incidences. Jean-Robert, hope I've covered your questions.
Yes. I have a few questions, but let's hear from Barry, because all the speakers are pointing towards some specific things that I would like to ask Barry, and then we can come back to question. I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask the speakers before I open them up to the community. So Barry, I think that you have a presentation, but so you are another industry veteran and you have seen a lot. From the global norm, anti-abuse, forum incident response team perspective, you have a lot of experience. You have seen practices, you have seen issues, you have seen challenges. We have heard from previous speakers. What are your views on improving area and key action that we can take? Are there concrete actions that we can take from this session that we are having? I would like to hear your thoughts.
So if you can hear me okay, what you're hearing from all the presenters so far is that we got a lot of security problems. And the security problems are not going away. Several of us on here, we're at the pizza party building the Kenya Internet Exchange decades ago. Now think of that, decades ago. And we're in this boat right now where what we're doing, and you hear a lot of people say, well, we're doing all these things in the national CSIRTs. We're doing all these things in ISPs. It's not producing the results we expect. We're in a crisis point. So there's there's a community that's growing is saying we need to rethink everything. What we're doing is not going to save us, right? So we have to question what we do. So here's some thinking around this, and this is going down towards actions, like what ISPs can do, right? So if you can see, everybody see the slides, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, so let's think through this right now. I'm a martial artist, Miyamoto Musashi. If you're a martial artist, you kind of listen to the things he says, you can only fight the way you practice. When I teach workshops, I go and tell people that you will only be able to respond to the crisis situations if every single day you practice. That means every single day you need to go out there and fix it and remediate it and plug the holes. That is especially true for national CSIRT teams. And I'm seeing this throughout the different parts of the different world with different CSIRT teams. And I've run national CSIRT teams, built national CSIRT teams, built CSIRT teams in every organization I've been in. So I understand sort of the dynamics of the responsibilities. But if you're not taking action every day, then you are not going to be prepared for when the crisis comes. And by action, so let's take one of them right now. Let's take one of them to route and security, because this is a route and security workshop. We have a huge freaking problem. It's not about signing the routes. Yes, signing the routes is important, but there are two critical dependencies. Critical dependency number one, if your BGP session is down, it doesn't matter what you have signed. And this came up after a DDoS attacks, 2 DDoS attacks reported earlier this month. What did they target? 179. Took down the session. You target 179, what happens? Your BGP session goes down. So I do a quick check because I'm investigating this and saying, okay, that's interesting, all right? 300,000 based off of Showdown. So I quickly call up my Shadowserver buddies, right? Or on the Showdown report here, you can see the ISPs out there. Some of the biggest service providers on the planet have open port 179 ports. And if they're open and they're scannable by Showdown, they can be targeted by a DOS attack, all right? So I go shut Shadowserver and say, hey, we need to start doing scanning, right? So I'm a Shadowserver volunteer. So we go out there, we quickly put out a report. This report is sent to everybody here. I hope that everybody here is getting your daily Shadowserver reports or using the API to pull down the materials. There are 2 new BGP reports into that. National CSIRTs, you should have the report on every single autonomous system in your country. Let's say that again. National CSIRTs can get reports from Shadowserver from every autonomous system in their country. That means you can monitor for critical infrastructure, because all those 179 ports is a crisis situation, right? So you take something like this, and can we as a community say, okay, every single day I'm going to start talking to autonomous system in my country. We're going to go out there and say, let's build a roadmap to secure the BGP sessions. Now, security BGP sessions, you can throw you can throw an access list on it. You can use different tools like general purpose TTL mechanism. You can go out there and obfuscate it with loopbacks. I'm going around and talking to different operators and updating the training materials with it. I'll put the training materials I did 2 years ago for AfricaCERT in 2022, so people can watch those videos. But these are the things you need to do and sit down and have meaningful conversations with ISPs. You know, what's happening in Kenya is kind of unique. I go to other countries like in Asia Pacific, and they're not having these sort of conversations out there, right? And you look at it today by autonomous systems, it's not just the ISPs, it's your critical infrastructure. We're moving to a realm where the security crisis is to the point where it is kinetic threats. Kinetic threats means it's physical threats. There are medical communities in the hospitals who are hiding the impact risk of ransomware getting into the hospitals, causing chaos inside the IT infrastructure in the hospitals, and people dying. There are pipelines that had incidents to go on with the Ukraine war. There are satellite systems that were taken down, right? What is the collateral impact of all this, right? So this is, as the earlier speaker mentioned, this is a national crisis issue. This is not just about let's lock down the exchange points and ISPs. All of mobile is using this infrastructure. So all your mobile phones is looking at this infrastructure, all right? So I don't know if anybody watched, but Rogers in Canada, major carrier, everything went down because they had everything coupled dependency and everything else. So you had people at their home working for Rogers, connecting through Rogers to get to Rogers with their cell phone from Rogers. And when they had an issue on their network, nobody can get in. The security codes didn't work, right? This is sort of things we need to look for with you know, the scale of it. So this is something I was thinking through with this session, and this is something I mentioned to the Manners team to do as an additional workshop to help national CSIRTs have a conversation flow. How could they sit down with their ISPs and not look at like big, long reports, but look at, here is the actions I do every day to get the networks more and more resilient, to do the different things to plug up the holes and to protect it. And because national CSIRTs have access to their country through Shadowserver, right? There's no excuse because this doesn't cost them anything. They run a script and they say, how many routers in my country have Telnet opened? Or even running Telnet instead of running SSH. If they're running NTP or simple network management protocol. If your network device is scannable by Shadowserver, it pops up on the report. And if your network device if you can see SNMP, that means I can find out the version number on that network device. That means I can probably figure out a way to break into the device. If I can break into the device, all the RPKI in the world is not going to save you when somebody breaks into your router. So Manners, to me, one of my criticisms of Manners has always been like, it's not going far enough. It's not going far enough in the requirements and expectations it puts on its members and what they sign up to, and then enforcing the mechanisms with it. All right. So this is something to stay tuned. I'm going to develop a, you know, kind of like a guide so people can go through and say, here is a conversation tool. Because one of the things I do is I help people by, here's a conversation tool that they can go through with it. Right. And is this really a problem? Well, this is a rubric. It's a rubric from a friend of mine. It's a rubric from a friend of mine that every day is tracking down DDoSes. And every day he gets frustrated, he says, this particular autonomous system is a Manners participant. This particular autonomous system is not doing source address validation. They will not pick up the phone when I need them to go plug the hole. And they are a part of the problem, not part of the solution. Why is this going on, right? And so he built this rubric because he will finally get through them and they'll come up with all these excuses. This doesn't work, that doesn't work. And a lot of clue problems like that. So operators and national CSIRTs, it's really important to actually get into a action mode versus a, here's a report and here's like, oh, I'm exchanging information. Exchanging information doesn't do anything unless you take actions to it every single day. So if you look at my piece of wisdom of watching this over the years, do that. Now, if you want to know more about this, I posted as soon as the DOS attacks happened, I did some initial checks. I did a post on it. There'll be more things coming out within the first community and things like that, but you can kind of keep tuned with that. These slides I'll push out and also push some other links in there onto the portal so people can get access to some of the materials on here. So that's kicks it off.
Okay, thank you very much. Very impressive. So I think that we have a couple of line of action, and we need to go back to practices, to exercise, etc. I will open the mic to the community participant in case they have some question to the speakers. If we can wrap up everything within the next 15 minutes, that will be awesome. So do we have any questions from participants or suggestion, additional comment? Okay.
One thing I was going to say to break the silence, I just what Peter mentioned about the collaboration. I mean, he and I, and to give you guys a story and building the Kenya Inter Exchange, we had a conference during the day, and then at night we were hanging out at the exchange place. We got pizza, and it was a whole bunch of us sitting around, everybody on the laptop, everybody from a different organization, and everybody helping each other redesign everybody's backbones to work on the exchange point. That level of collaboration is what we need. And it's collaboration combined with action, because that was a time period where everybody got together, they helped each other out, and they helped each other act and take action. They didn't sit back and say, well, you should do this, you should do that. No, everybody was next to each other, helping each other out. That is the spirit that can help keep the miscreants at bay.
Okay, thank you. I have a question here from a participant. It is very interesting to hear that Manners is not going hard enough in terms of requirement, which it imposes on its members. I would be very curious to know why that is the case and what impact it has. Also, why do you think Manners is not expanding at the desired rate? What are the barriers to these members, network operators, ISPs, etc.? And thank you all for your time and valuable input. So it's for all of you. Who would like to start?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. So this is Kevin. I can answer, at least I'll try and answer that question. So thanks, Ahmad, for your question. So in terms of Manners and the requirements asked of members, and why perhaps it may seem sometimes it's not enough to address some of the challenges that have been mentioned this call. So Manners next year will be 10 years old. Manners has been a community-led activity. It basically prescribes a set of best practices. And what we ask of the members is that they agree to conform to a certain set of actions. So the actions have been divided into four main categories. There are action points for network operators, there are actions for IXPs, there are actions for CDNs, content data networks, and then actions for hardware manufacturers. Now, we've been taking in this input from the community, and right now we're actually in the process of developing what's going to be the future of Manners, which is called Manners Plus. Manners Plus is going to be an elevated level of Manners, whereby we are going to ask that the members or the participants of Manners take more aggressive stance on the action points, and there'll be more thorough auditing of how networks are conforming to those action points. So it's been a community-led event. It's grown in strength over the years. Right now we have about 1,000 participants, or 1,000, you can call them members, so to speak, but we call them participants. So That's the plan right now. In terms of, we are working on what's called Manners Plus. That's going to address some of the gaps. In fact, there were a couple of presentations last week, sorry, not last week, yesterday evening, last night, regarding what Manners Plus is going to be about, how that can be brought into supply chain security. And it will be the next, it will be the evolution of Manners, whereby there'll be stricter requirements of the members and stricter auditing to look after the so-called Manners Plus participants. So it's been a community-led event. We are also trying to get our members to help with our fundraising so that we can improve some of the aspects of Manners. So I'll ask you to maybe have a look at the session that went on yesterday called Manners Plus. It goes into a lot more detail, but in brief, Manners Plus is going to ask a bit more of its members and ask that they be more engaging, more aggressive with the actions that they're signing up to. Now, in terms of expansion, we are trying to promote Manners as much as possible through events like this, through various NOG events, network operator group events, through working with new communities. That's, in fact, exactly why we have this session today with our CSIRTs, because we feel CSIRTs are really going to help us to increase the number of Manners participants and also awareness. I can say there's also an awareness challenge where most people will focus on my network security, like, yeah, I have a firewall, I have antivirus, I have anti-malware, and so on. But the realization that you can be the victim of a hijack that takes place even outside of the country, that level of awareness is not really as broad as it should be. So events like this, the Routing Security Summit, the presentations we do at our various NOG meetings, it's aimed at increasing the awareness and asking more network operators, more IXPs to sign up to Manners and conform to these best current operational practices. And also, we've also recently started working with governments. There'll be a government session tomorrow because we are hoping to work through governments to engage more of the stakeholders in technology to sign up to Manners, to understand the issues of routing security, why it's important to sign up, and maybe derive some policies there that can be of use at local level to guide network operators and other players to be aware of routing security and also adopt these best current operational practices as described by Manners. So let me stop here because of time, but I hope you've answered most of the question.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any additional input, Barry?
Additional input would be, and this is one of the problems with the Manners Plus, watching it, and this was brought up during AfricaCERT this year, is there isn't it's not about the auditing, it's about the accountability. And there isn't a direct feedback methodology in where the membership can say, we got 4 operators, we're tracing down a serious DDoS operation. It's coming out of you as a Manners operator, and we can't find anybody who can help us. And it's spoofed addresses, right? And who do you go to on Manners? So these are Manners members talking to other Manners members, and there's a frustration that's building from an operational practice standpoint. So yes, doing more requirements and getting more tools out there and funding more tools and doing more measurement, that's all good. But it's the action point that's going to help us. Measuring the problem as the problem keeps on increasing doesn't really solve the problem.
Yeah, maybe a quick response to that, Barry. So the Manners Plus, it's a work in progress. We have an open working group there where we are asking the community to provide more input and ideas. By no means are we saying we have all the answers as the ISOC team behind the Manners project. We are working with the community. We have a steering committee as well. There is right now a Manners working group that is looking for ideas, looking for suggestions. But the main idea, the main general approach for Manners Plus is it's going to be an elevated criteria or elevated category of Manners, where those who sign up and are accepted to be Manners Plus members or participants will be taking stricter action to make sure that they conform to those manners best kind of operational practices. And that could also involve what you're talking about, quicker response time, maybe even a bit of automation in terms of, instead of just waiting for someone to pick up the phone and take action, are there ways that the community can work together to automate some of the response, so that you don't have to always wait for someone to come and take action, or to make a change in the network. So
a lot of issues are going to be issues that people have to take action. And since it's a CSIRT session, one of the things to take back from this summit on this particular session with it and talking to CSIRTs, most of the CSIRTs that you would be talking to are members of FIRST. Perhaps a big summit with Manners is talking with the FIRST community and learning from the FIRST community how different parts of the FIRST community, whether it's AfricaCERT or in Europe or in Latin America, especially Latin America, they do exercises. You can have all the requirements you want, but you got to exercise it. You got to do it. The analogy I give in teaching is you can have a bunch of people have a bunch of requirements at a fire station, reading their requirements. But if you don't practice on your tools around your fire engine, and you go to a fire and you break out the books trying to figure out what to do, the fire's, that's it. You got to practice. So yes, you can come up and do the requirements. But one of the reasons in the incident response community and from the FIRST, I'll put on my, as a FIRST liaison, is practice is key. Come over requirement, you have to okay, here is a route, we got a route leak. All right, let's do an exercise where people jump on and make sure people can call each other during a route leak. Oh, we got a hijack. Oh, we got a hijack that's intentionally doing an incident, right? So you exercise it and kind of see, does the systems work out well?
Yeah, I agree, Barry, and apologies, my camera is not working anymore, but that's exactly why we want the CSIRT community to bring out their experience in terms of responding to incidents. So as I mentioned, our focus a lot has been on building the best current operational practices. Now the next level is incident response, which is where now the CSIRT committee comes in. And you've said it. I think you put it very well, that there is one thing to draft the guidelines and the best kind of operational practices, but then is another piece of the puzzle, which is the incident response, and that's exactly why we are very interested. This year, I met Jean-Robert at the AfricaCERT meeting and FAST meeting, and we had this discussion and said, I think it would make very good sense for the manners community to find better ways to integrate with the CSIRT community. And my other colleagues in the manners team, they've been attending the FAST meeting and so on. That led to the creation of a special interest group within FAST for looking into routing security. So it's, I think it's a work in progress, and I think it's something that both communities can integrate and work on. And, I think we both want the same thing. We both want safer networks and a safer internet for everyone.
Yes, and Kevin, to add something to this, in addition to what Barry just said, in the CSIRT community, people constantly train themselves through tabletop exercise, through cyber drill, different kind of ways to keep themselves alert. So if we can come up with, together with Manners and ISO, with different kind of exercise that can put people into real case scenario, that will be interesting. There is a last comment here, and then after that we will close the session. What incentive that Manners offer, think should offer to organization within the internet community to grow participation in the program? And I will add to also encourage good behaviors. Kevin?
Yeah, I can answer that. Thanks for the question, Ahmad. So as I mentioned, Manners no cost to the participants who sign up, and the first stage would be to apply and say you'd like to become a Manners participant. You can be you can join under one of the 4 programs that I mentioned: network operator, internet exchange point, CDN, and equipment vendor. Then once you join in, you'll get access to our Manners Observatory. So the Manners Observatory is a dashboard of routing security globally. You can use it as a way to know how well your network and also networks around you, and also how your country or a region is doing in terms of routing security. It's a free observatory, but once you become a Manners participant, you get elevated access to the observatory. There's an API that you can use to plug into other tools, like if you have a security incident tool, a CM tool, you can plug your API to the Manners Observatory, and you can get alerts relating to your network and routing security incidents like leaks and hijacks. You'll also get conformance reports. So a conformance report is a monthly health check on your routing security. It's just a one-page document that says, this is your network, this is your AS number, these were the incidents that perhaps your network was a victim of or was involved in. So you basically get a health check report of your network and understand any security incidents that may have involved your network. And then also you're joining a community of security-focused network operators. We have a mailing list. We have the steering committee, which you can join in and also participate and contribute. We have the Manners Plus working group, which I've mentioned here, which is also open to participate. You can register and contribute. And we're looking for ideas. And I think the more people and the more communities that we engage in, the better the internet security will be for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, participants, speakers. And on this close note, I hand back the mic to you, Kevin, for the closure.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jean-Robert, Barry, Peter, Francis, Alain. Thank you very much for your time and contributing your knowledge and expertise to the session. It is very, very highly appreciated. Speaking from the Manners team, we're really looking forward to engage with the CSIRT community, see how we can collaborate. So this has been a very useful session. To all the attendees, also thank you very much for your time. There's a short poll there which we'd like to collect from you in terms of what was your biggest takeaway from the session. You can follow up for more sessions. There'll be more sessions tomorrow. And you can also you can also get the recordings from the past sessions that took place from Monday. There have been very interesting sessions. We started with training tutorials. We had very good sessions yesterday on Manners Plus. Today also was a bit of research, and then tomorrow there'll be also a very engaging government session. Please, we encourage you to follow as many sessions as you can. I see a question. Can I get a copy of the recording? Yes. So all the recordings will be available. And if you're following the Manners Twitter page and us on LinkedIn, you'll get further information of how you can access the recordings.